This is the story of how one man turned a morbid business into an empire. Today's story is called The Dozen Businesses That Became One.
Season 2 of the story features 12 trailblazers who started a business that changed the world. The story is brought to you exclusively by Salesforce, the world's #1 customer relationship management platform. More than 150,000 businesses are using Salesforce to blaze their own trails to success. And now, on to the story.
For years, the man had dreamed of making it to the United States of America. Now he was on his way. The boat taking him there was rocking and swaying through the ocean waves. He leaned over the deck, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Fog hung low over the seawater. He squinted to see through it. And there she was. She was 305 feet tall. The Statue of Liberty was modeled after Libertas, the Roman goddess of freedom. Chills covered his body as they approached. His ancestor had suffered and died to give him this chance, and now here he was. As the boat moved closer, he could see the 7 spikes in her crown. They represented the idea that one day a more free world might be created across the 7 seas and 7 continents of the world. The boat docked, and the man and his wife stepped off. They were in the city so nice, they named it twice. New York, New York. They couldn't have arrived at a worse time. It was the midst of the Great Depression. Soon the man and his wife discovered that they had a child on the way. Their son was born in Brooklyn, in the ghetto. The man did everything he could, but it wasn't enough. As he grew older, he took stock of what he could give to his son. Giving him money was out of the question. He noticed that he was heavily discriminated against because of his Jewish last name, so he did what he could and changed their family name. He kept working, got sick, and on his deathbed, called to Steve, his son. The old man wished that he had an inheritance to give to Steve, but all he had was the strength for one final piece of advice. He told his son that there are those who work all day, those who dream all day, and those who spend an hour dreaming before setting into work to fulfill those dreams. So go into the third category, because there's virtually no competition. His father died soon after, and Steve, his son, took the advice to heart. He started to work like hell, but he also dreamed. Steve spent 2 years at college and then enlisted in the Navy. He discovered within himself a passion to serve the country that his father had loved so much. At that same time, there was another dream stirring in his heart. It was back in Manhattan. He just knew it. He followed his father's advice and answered a new call to adventure. Steve started working for his uncle in the garment district of Manhattan. It was hard work, and it wasn't something that he was passionate about. But it paid the bills, and it was where he met his first wife, Carol. He was 26 years old. Carol's father ran a successful funeral parlor, and Steve decided to join the business. People laughed, but he took the opportunity seriously. His own father could only dream of opportunities as good as this. His uncle-in-law didn't use the limos at night. He asked him why not. His uncle-in-law didn't know. He didn't have anything else to do with them. So the young man struck up a deal. He would rent the limousines at night to wealthy New Yorkers. The idea was a hit, and the family cheered the young man on. For years, he worked at the funeral home full-time. He comforted weeping people during the day and rented out limos at night. Soon he saved enough money and started his own rental car company. Now he rented both cars and limos. He had to take a loan out to start the business, and at night he would feel sick about it. How was he ever going to pay it off? He decided to take his father's advice. At night, when it seemed like it was too much, he would spend his time dreaming about it. He visualized paying the loan off and expanding into other businesses. Abbey Rent-A-Car eventually became a success, and he paid off the loan. Eventually, his father-in-law and uncle-in-law saw his skills and sold him most of their shares in the funeral parlor. The young man kept going and took another loan out to buy an office cleaning business. After so many days of passing the New York Stock Exchange during work, he was thinking bigger. When other dreamers wanted to be traders in that building, he had another thought. I wonder who cleans all those floors? It wasn't long until he was cleaning the building and thinking about how to get his business listed on the New York Stock Exchange. He paid off the next loan, took another out, and expanded. When the time was right, he rolled all of his small businesses together and found a banker that would take them public. He named his hodgepodge of companies Kinney National Company and IPO'd. After the IPO, they were worth a bit over $12 million. It wasn't a lot, but with the capital, he bought a talent agency and then a wood flooring company. There was no business that he wouldn't try. For 7 years, he successfully steered the company and learned everything he needed as he went. As investors in the public market saw his performance, they bought more shares. Suddenly, he didn't need loans. Nearby, he noticed a failing film studio and record business. He had no experience in media, but it was a lot more glamorous than cleaning floors. He believed that he could turn it around, or at least help them get back on track. He bought the business, restructured it, and soon it was profitable. His collection of small businesses now had serious streams of cash flow. His new studio and record label were named Warner Brothers. He liked the sound of that. In 1972, he rebranded all of his companies under Warner Communications. So this was a man who had combined a funeral parlor, limo company, rental car company, parking lot company, office cleaning company into a holding company, IPO'd, bought Warner Records, Warner Films, and then he bought Atlantic Records and DC Comics. So how was he doing it all? And more importantly, how was he successful in so many different businesses? It might have had something to do with how he treated his people. At the time, Steve's HR policies were completely revolutionary. He offered his employees incentives based on compensation and invested in them. After years of watching his father become broken by his work, he was determined to try something new. He offered lavish holiday gifts, paid facelifts, trips to corporate vacation homes, tickets to events, and championship fights. He would treat his executives and guests to private plane flights where he would pass out candies and perform card tricks. One of his chief executives once said, "We'll kill for the company because we're made to feel like principals, not employees." On top of all the HR innovations, Steve had a powerful imagination. He introduced narrowcasting, a process that uses cable television to provide specialized programs to specific audiences. It would seem like common sense, but back in those days, it was a brand new concept. There were only a limited number of channels. The channels didn't have a specific differentiator. He had another idea. Why isn't there a channel for children? Or a channel for music? So he created MTV and Nickelodeon, both of which he later sold. And just like that, the man realized he was an influential member of the entertainment establishment. Word about him and his management style spread all over the world. As he reached the top of the entertainment industry, his relationship with his wife was sadly at an all-time low. They divorced, and soon after, he suffered a massive heart attack. On top of it all, his media empire was crumbling. He had made a $1 billion bet by acquiring a rapidly growing company that created state-of-the-art video games. That company was Atari. And on one fateful day, without warning, Atari's stock price crashed. It sent his own stock price spiraling downward, which caused corporate raiders and shorts to circle his company. He faced a hostile takeover attempt from another media titan, Rupert Murdoch. Steve desperately needed cash, and to keep things going, he had to sell 20% of his stock. He was disappointed, but made the deal. That deal was the final big one of his life. He merged Warner Communications with Time Inc. to become Time Warner. With Time's magazine presence and Warner's music and production company, Steve was now at the helm of the biggest media company in the world. He'd done it. He'd built an empire from nothing. Steve was Stephen J. Ross. After decades of struggle, working in obscurity, and building unglamorous businesses, he'd created a preeminent media empire. Sadly, Steve passed away at just 65 years of age. But the management principles and acquisitions he made have helped Time Warner remain a leader in media and entertainment. Steve's life is an epic testament to the power of work and dreams. He was often criticized for his business style and trying to do too much, but he despised fear and inaction. Many employees and partners saw him as a father figure. Clint Eastwood dedicated his Oscar for the movie Unforgiven to Steve Ross. And Steven Spielberg dedicated his movie Schindler's List to Steve Ross. On top of it, he paid him a serious compliment. Spielberg said, "Steve was very much what I wish my father was." One of Steve Ross's best pieces of wisdom on running and growing a small business and helping turn it into an empire is timeless. He says that you can't operate a company by fear, because the way to eliminate fear is to avoid criticism, and the way to avoid criticism is to do nothing. So don't let a fear or criticism paralyze you from taking massive action. Expect critiques to come, and when they do, realize that it's just a confirmation. You're taking action and people are recognizing it. Stephen Ross's story reminds us that the real risk lies in doing nothing. So don't be afraid to explore dozens of different businesses. Try many things, quit some, or roll them all up into one big company. Steve's father and mother made tremendous sacrifices for him that gave him an opportunity to succeed in business, and he didn't let fear hold him back. In life, there is always someone who has made sacrifices to give us the opportunities we have today. So what will we do with those opportunities? Will we let fear of criticism keep us from doing anything? Or will we take massive action and ensure that the sacrifices of all those who came before will not be in vain? That's his story. What's yours going to be?
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Story. We have an exclusive giveaway for our listeners, 2 free tickets to Salesforce Connections in Chicago on June 12th through June 14th. Salesforce Connections is the digital marketing, commerce, and customer service event of the year. You'll learn how to create personalized experiences at every touchpoint and deliver service that drives growth and exceeds consumer expectations. Head to thestorypodcast.com and enter to win today. That's thestorypodcast.com. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Salesforce, for sharing these stories of business trailblazers who changed the world.
If you like this episode of The Story, please help spread these stories by telling one friend. Also, you can hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Story is created by our team here at The Mission. The Mission is your #1 source for accelerated learning. To get more stories and podcasts like this and our world-class newsletter, subscribe at themission.co. That's themission.co. See you next time.